Good morning, Jerod. Welcome to the Space Economy. How you doing today?
It's Friday, man, and I'm in Atlanta. We getting ready to party. Our asses off. I'm not even gonna lie to you. The World Series, we won it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I'm getting ready for that right there. And I apologize for being late. My computer did a reload of Zoom. So apologies about that.
No worries, no worries. Now that I realize you're from Atlanta, we're just gonna wrap up this call because I'm from H-Town. So, Jerod, it's nice to talk to you. Good luck with that. I'm out.
Hey man, listen. The heartache we have had as Atlanta fans, all I gotta say is Tom Brady. Okay, that's all I gotta say about that. When Tom Brady did us like that in the Super Bowl, listen, you got to give us something. You got to give us something.
Jerod, you can have baseball. I'm not a baseball fan. It's like boring, but it is what it is.
Listen, can I tell you a little secret? Secret? I'm not a baseball fan, man. I'm a huge football fan. I need a win for my city right now.
Fair enough. We're coming out of the Rona. We're coming out of the pandemic. Man, I'm happy that the Braves won this World Series.
Number one, this book right here has got me very curious. It's making me sound very, very smart to some people that do not know I'm reading this book here. Okay, because you give me
what book is this, Jerod?
Can you see my screen?
No, your screen's not on.
You know what? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay. Yeah. Blockchain in the space economy.
Yep. So I'll be honest with you. That's been my biggest focus right now. And at my point in my career, I think that I've never seen this type of energy before to understand it, if that makes sense. Like when I was young in the 90s, I'm 47. So I've lived through hip hop. I've lived through the first iteration of the internet. I remember in college, Netscape and Galileo, those internet, I guess. And this is before AOL. But now what I see is that I just think that there is a huge reset of opportunities for people like myself when you get involved with what you guys are doing, I think, and what you guys are really pushing, and letting the kind of younger generation live a new form of human evolution. I just think we're at the intersection of that right there. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. So
we're not going back to payphones. Put it like that. We're not going back to payphones.
That is that is true, but I will tell you why cash will still be important.
Okay.
Part of explaining people. I don't have a blockchain book. I have a Stop Sucking Up to VC's book, which isn't actually a book. We just retweeted some tweets. But as you know, there's no paper in space.
Right.
It's just way too much. And so part of how we were talking about blockchain in space, if you take this, your satellites, and these are your nodes, then it's what business do you want to conduct in space? And so as we're looking towards the fifth industrial revolution, it's very go on. You have a question?
I'm still dealing with the fourth industrial revolution right now. So
well, you can't be on the cutting edge if you're living in history, if you're reading history. And so it's not that the fourth industrial revolution isn't important, but part of it is as we're getting rid of paper and as the pandemic really helped digitize interactions and paper processes, help automation across the board. This is where we're really looking at machine learning, natural language processing, the ability to talk to your computers or your devices, IoT, and then what happens as we put more and more assets into space, assets meaning not only rockets, but brain power. Because before, like this year, for 2021, Space Force budget is $15.2 billion. Next year, they've asked for $17.4 billion. And so you're getting, and so this is why I love talking to Black folks about space economy, number one, because we missed out on the internet economy.
100%.
Valley. Because no one was talking to us in the early 90s about like, yo, Jerod, let me talk to you about the internet economy. You'd be like,
right.
Yo. And so we weren't part of that seismic shift, the creation of Silicon Valley. And as a result, we see that gap between the haves and the have-nots. And so it's the space economy. I have to just say that. People are like, what do you mean the space economy? Because back in the day, the internet economy, no one was talking about it. Then the internet popped off. And now it's such a big part of our lives, we would never separate the trillion-dollar businesses that come from the internet, from just the economy. And so
Wow.
it,
What you're
it's
doing, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm still processing what you just said about the space economy and we not being left behind this time like we were with the internet. That's an excellent language strategy, what you're doing right now. That's an excellent language strategy, calling it the space economy, because everybody does wonder about space. That's excellent what you're saying. And I think I'm gonna use that in some of my conversations from now on out, because I understand it more now based on what you just told me. I get it. I get it. Let me ask you a question about that too. How do we condition people to need to get curious about this at scale?
And so part of conditioning people to get curious about it at scale is, and the pandemic has helped a lot, because now when we talk about the space economy and we say, you know how you get on Zoom and you're talking to people, it's not a phone line.
It's not.
A majority of the time, those signals, they go up. It's a very expensive satellite. They go up to space and they get beamed down. And so people are like, oh, and of course, when you mention your GPS in your watch or your phone, they're like, that stands for Global Positioning System. And so it's highlighting how every day, let me blow your mind right quick, Jerod. You've never been on the internet, but you use it every day.
Explain that, please.
Have you ever physically been on the internet? No, but it's so real. You're like,
presence. So that's presence, what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. You'll be like, I go on the internet all the time. I'm like, you have never been on the internet. Stop calling this. Calm down. You've never been on the information superhighways. But you're like, no, I use it. I'm an internet expert. And then when you tell people you've been part of the space economy your whole life, they'll be like, what? But particularly for Black folks, we've been users. Black Twitter, we've been users of content, not owners. And so part of that conversation is, now that you're thinking, shit, I have never been physically on the internet, but it exists. You do not doubt that. Now you're also like, oh my goodness, the space economy. Every time you get on a plane, that GPS is telling you where to go. Every time you check the weather, every time you use this device, every time you travel abroad and swipe your credit card, when you look at the financial markets, many of them still do run on land-based lines. They do. But the next iteration is, how do we increase the speed by beaming it down? And so I'm gonna give a quick prop, because we're gonna get people engaged about the space economy. Elon Musk built rockets so he could deploy satellites so he could collect your data.
So how do we take our data back then, honestly? Because to me, I tell people all the time, I'm not on Facebook because I think they should pay you a commission. Because they are literally, you're working for them and you don't even, like you said, you're not on the information highway. You are basically, I think they make like $17 per subscriber on Facebook, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to say it's a little bit more, but we'll have someone fact check it. I feel like the annual value of a user is about 127 bucks.
Okay.
I've seen the stat somewhere, because that's where they monetize through advertising revenue. That's why they need eyeballs. So it's a challenge reclaiming your data, because on one hand, that horse is out the barn. And so how do you get it back in? So that's one of the challenges. And this is where, if you're in the self-sovereign identity space, our industry or vertical, blockchain can play a role in that, because at the end of the day, everything with blockchain starts with identifying, is this the right person or right entity I want to talk to? And then everything else, whether it's financial transactions, title for your mortgages, or what are a digital identity, it all starts with ID. So we're working on that. It's super hard, because humans, there was an experiment where they would offer you $5 or a cookie to give up your social security number. And this is for some of the younger kids who are under 25. And by and large, most of them are like, give me a cookie. As a federal contractor, I know my social security was leaked through OPM when it got hacked in 2013, 2014 by the Chinese. So if you really want to find my social, it exists somewhere on someone's registry. So that horse has left the barn, but we're going to figure this out, because it is important. But I think more so for Black folks just to be aware, that space economy exists. There's about 1,800 small businesses, startups and entrepreneurs who are in the space economy right now. You can go to Space Ventures and it gives you a great list of that. And this is the thing that blows people's minds. Jerod, how are you supposed to have a SB 8A, Small Business Administration designation for your space business so that you can get part of those billions of dollars that are going into the space economy if you don't know the space economy is a thing?
Wait a minute, you just blew my mind, basically. So SB 8A is basically having small business administration for the space economy. What do we do with that? Like how like
So first off, it requires some of a very large portion of Black millionaires. They've gone through the small business administration process to do government contracting, because when they have those set asides for small businesses, women owned, vet owned, when they have those small set asides for small businesses, it's in the $3 to $9 million range. When you're a company of three and your biggest client is paying you $3 to $9 million a year, that really matters. That's like a big deal for you. But again, if you've never gone through the SB 8A program, never applied, if you never incorporated a business, if you never started your quote unquote side hustle, which might, what's the young lady's name? She has a contract with Fort Meade for linens, meaning bed sheets. That's worth like 1.5 million a year because she provides them with sheets, linens. And I'm like, oh man, I love it. That's not even in space, it's just here on the ground. But I challenge you, when have you ever seen a military budget decrease?
Never.
Space Force is 2 years old. By the time it is 5, it's gonna have NASA's budget is only $22 billion. By the time it is 5, it's probably gonna have a 5x multiple of NASA's budget. Why? Because so much more resources are going into space and into the space economy.
How do we, Samson, let me ask you this question then. I think that's a business in itself. What you're talking about, conditioning people to take advantage of the space economy. Like seriously, I think that's a business within itself, because I don't want to kind of show my other side, but when you put something out there to the streets, as I call it, it has better adoption amongst our culture when it comes from certain venues or certain stakeholders. Let's just say it like that, right? Can we agree on that?
100%, 100%.
But if it's through music, you may get a large adoption rate, seriously. And I hate to say it, because we are spiritual musical people. I agree with that. But how do people need to talk to you? Say, I found you by a whim of a freaking article of your opinion on NFTs. And I'm thinking NFTs are a great gateway to more opportunities. Man, you so beyond this right now. And we still down here talking about how do we create DAOs and NFTs and like meme coins and shit. I'm sorry, but things like that. But you're talking about like, and I'm over here like, man, this man is why are you not being talked to by the people that's supposed to be, the thought leaders of Black culture like this right here? Where the fuck are they? Seriously, where are they?
Chad, I love your enthusiasm. And so I've been in the blockchain space since 2014.
We have not, this. We have not though.
But part of it is you read a fucking book.
I did.
It's hard to get humans to read a book, because part of why, so one of my mentors told me, you can go get, the smartest person go find a book they wrote, because they've summarized their entire existence for $20.
That's so profound right there.
Right? They took probably 40 years of their life, 3 to 5 that are very specific, and they sold it to you for $29.99. And all you got to do is pick it up and read it. However, the challenge is, how do you get people who are being distracted, some would say intentionally, by TikTok, Instagram, and randomness? Let's go NFTs. Let's go to the moon. Let's have a shit coin that's based on a meme coin that are both larger than Deutsche Bank. But what value do they provide you to pay your rent? What value do they provide you for social justice, economic justice? And there's a difference between civil rights, voting rights, and economic rights, but no one wants to get into the details. And so you read a book. And so I appreciate the fact that you picked up blockchain in the space economy. We've exposed you to this thought because I would like all Black people to be on this, just have awareness. But again, I can't force you. I can lead you to water. I can't make you drink. So
So
the fact that
I have a proposal then for you with that right there.
go for it.
One thing I have noticed though, like social media is our best friend, I think, because it's connectivity. And I'm talking about emotional connectivity in a sense, because that's one thing that I understand. When you have empathy and authority, you absolutely can penetrate through all the different skepticism that we're seeing that people have, because they're too connected in a sense. They have too much access to information and it's overload. So they don't know what to do with it. I'm a sales guy, okay? So I'm always thinking about how do I problem solve, okay? Let me ask you something here. Have you ever thought about making like inroads, again, with some of these different younger and medium age people like myself who have these different these influencers of culture in a sense? Because what you are is a cultural influence. You're going to help people understand we are playing the wrong game still. It's like now people are talking about the metaverse, including myself, because it is some of the most interesting things about it. But I agree with you when you talk about, when you look up, I'll keep wondering why Elon Musk, why Jeff Bezos, and why Richard Branson are all taking their white ass up to space like this with regular humans. And not one Black person has even mentioned that in a conversation saying, what are they doing? Man, they are getting ready to commoditize space. Am I right about that?
You are. So there is Dr. C.N. Proctor. She was recently on the Inspiration 4 mission. She's actually based out in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
So she used to be an analog astronaut, but now she's a regular astronaut because she's been to space. Sian is Sian Proctor. She's brilliant. She's a PhD in geology. And so there are some Black people in the space industry talking about the space industry. However, the challenge is we're like a handful. Like I could name the rest of them. Let me rephrase. In the book, I'm sorry, not this book. I'm going to send you this book, Race in Space. There have been 21 white guys named Michael in the history of NASA. 21 white guys named Michael in the history of NASA. There have been 20 Black astronauts, male and female. Glover just got added to the list because he went to the International Space Station in November of 2020. Because out of that 20, only 6, I want to say, had actually been to space. I'm going to send you a copy of this book, Race in the Space Economy, or rather, Race in Space, Racial Justice and Equity in the Space Economy, because it just outlines, there's only but a handful of Black folks. So part of that is we have to acknowledge some of the institutional bias and barriers to the future, because to your point, the billionaires are building rockets, not because they want to build rockets. They want to deploy satellites, because when they own the medium by which your information and data flows, they are able to better shape your lives and determine your financial products, determine your reality. And so when folks are saying the metaverse, I'm like, guys, some billionaires are trying to distract you by saying, go online, because I'm old enough to remember when the metaverse was just called cyberspace. And all you'll own in cyberspace is a headset, and that's it. But what value is a headset if you don't own anything in the real world?
So man, let me tell you,
that is the metaverse.
Dumb right now, because I just got an Oculus literally yesterday. I just got an Oculus yesterday because I am trying to figure out. Oh man,
no, there's some great games on the Oculus.
I'm not even talking about games. I'm not talking about games actually. What I'm talking about is, let me give you a glimpse into my world. As a person, I do executive engagement and sales. Our biggest thing is attention grabbing. We need to be able to understand how to grab attention in different formats to pitch solutions and products, or supposed solutions and products for real world types of problems. My biggest thing now is people have checked out. Do you know how many people have Zoom fatigue because of 100%. COVID? You know, so how am I supposed to get you to give me some of your time so I can pitch you some products that possibly can help you solve some business problems? That is my number one bane in my existence as a professional. I actually saw the metaverse as a way to enhance the engagement experience of a first meeting, because you're going to not be you're not going to want to see me in person as much before COVID, because you don't know if I'm vaccinated or if I'm you don't know what my health status is, basically, right? So you're gonna be cautious. You're not gonna want to meet me, shake my hand without having a thought about COVID. That's just, we're done with that right there, right?
Yeah.
So with Zoom, that was okay for first meetings or whatnot. But I'm looking at the experience of how can I get you on a virtual golf course so I can pitch you while we're trying to hit a couple of rounds of virtual golf in 30 minutes like that? Or what's the next level of basically experience that'll make you say, okay, you know what, you get 30 minutes of my time. Seriously. And that's why I'm
let me push pause because I've only got 9 minutes left, but I'm going to tell you this. Technology cannot compete with outside. I'll break that down with you. When everyone was so batshit crazy over Clubhouse, I was like, are we excited about conference calls? It's like, hold up. I'm going to get on a conference call and listen to other people talk. I don't understand that. And so Clubhouse went to the moon, but then outside's opened up and people were like, I'm out. I've got a beer, some sunshine, and a beach. I'm out. And so when we talk about the metaverse, I would say it's a dopamine distraction, meaning you're addicted to it. Your brain loves this dopamine feel. But if you really want to have human connection, take them to an actual golf course. We take our George and I, my partner at for the Space Economy, we do less marketing online because we don't want to be famous, we want to be influential. Because famous people don't make decisions, influential people do. And so most famous people can't influence someone to change their behavior or do something. Influencers do, particularly if you're talking about in a specific industry. The most influential people in your vertical aren't famous. No one knows who they are, but they're hella.
You're right.
So when you want to talk to actual decision makers, you don't want to talk to the face. You want to talk to the decision makers. Those people, there is that human connection. We did not evolve in cyberspace. We still want to look you in the eye, shake your hand, get to know you. We go to happy hours. We take people out fishing. We sort of do skiing. We do golf. We do anything that removes that electronic addiction from your hand so that you're not distracted and we can engage you. And so the hard part is just because you have all of these social media and the technology to have virtual introductions and conversations, I shit you not, next time I'm in Atlanta, we're gonna go get some peach cobbler and some barbecue and have a few beers. And it's gonna be fucking epic. And in that moment, you're gonna be like, why Oculus? What am I gonna do with this? Oculus just cannot compete with IRL. Because in real life, that's where bonds are formed. That's where humans, we've always developed this connectivity. That's why when you go to church, yeah, you can go online, but then when you physically go, it's a completely different environment. You just said when we started off this call, you just want the city of Atlanta just needed a win. That's an emotional sentiment.
You're right.
And so while you might want to watch the game on TV, the moment they win, you run outside and you're hugging random strangers.
Exactly.
And so I appreciate the technology, but I will just quote Biggie, rule number 6, never get high on your own supply. Mark Zuckerberg does not let his kids use Facebook. The technologists who design the technology generally don't let their children actually use it.
So why create it then?
Well, because if you're a drug dealer, you want to be a pusher, not a user. There's no money in using drugs. There's lots of money in selling it.
People need more access to you. People need more access. No, I'm dead ass serious. People need more access to you. Listen, Samson, my last takeaway is this right here then. How can I put you in front of more people to talk to so we can be more connected moving forward? Like I've already suggested your book to a couple of people. Like you said, I can't make them read it. I cannot do that. But I think people need to hear you and need to feel you, what you're talking about, because it is so fucking relevant. It is so relevant to what we complain about, not being able to be, have opportunities like that. Because you got to understand how to take it, how to knock on the door to take your opportunities where they are. We don't even know where they are right now. Seriously, what you're talking about.
So Jerod, here's what I'm going to do. I know you're a sales guy. You work with executives. I'm going to think on it, use my brain, get with George and be like, I know a seasoned, experienced 47-year-old, and this is a part of entrepreneurship that I love so much. I tell people, if you're 18, 20, 23, 30 years old, you're wet behind the ears.
Wow.
You're a rookie. You don't got as much hustle as me, because it's not that you're not enthusiastic and smart. There's just some things that only come with experience, and the only experience for experience is experience. Exactly. That's why you're busy fucking around in the metaverse. I'm like, guys, that's cyberspace. That's a conference call that you're very excited to be on. And so when they're and so please, I'm going to just leave on this message with, you have some experience. If you're the average age of a founder in Silicon Valley is 43, because by the time you get out of high school, by the time you go to college, you need 15 years of getting beat over the head, of learning your grind to be good at it, to build up the confidence. So I tell people, if you're in your 40s, you're great. You're actually probably going to spend more time over 50 than under, particularly with modern technology. And so people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, when you turn 50, you're probably going to live another 50 years. And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, don't worry about, oh, I'm 40, I'm super old. I'm like, nah, you're 40, you're like barely a teenager, mentally, financially, and emotionally, because it just takes time to become comfortable in your skin. Granted, I am from Texas, so some would say I've always been an asshole, but it took time for me to fully embrace my chocolate, the shade of Jesus assholeness, so that other people would be like, yo, that chocolate shade of Jesus asshole, he's legit. And so I'm going to think about it, talk to George and say, George, how can Jerod help us push out this message about not only the useful cases for blockchain, because that for NFTs, if you're buying 42 character receipts and you don't own real estate, we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
And so rather, if you don't own your home outright, not just have a mortgage that you're going to pay off in 30 years, but you're spending 5, 6, 7 figures on a digital thingamajiggy that you can only access in the metaverse, I cannot tell you how much of a hustle that is. I admire it, but it's 100% hustle, because you're still paying rent. You don't actually own anything. You own data, but you don't even own the data center. You don't own the infrastructure that conveys this data. You weren't an investor into Oculus. So again, it's like Black Twitter. We're making something pop, we're making something awesome, but the community is not benefiting from it. So I do have to run. Jerod, I'm going to send you an email with some follow-up ideas after I talk to George. He's off at Space Force boot camp, I call it, doing something with Space Force at the moment. I'm in Phoenix myself doing something for the casino industry.
Thank you for waking up this early.
Yeah, so I will see you later. Thanks for picking up our book, Blockchain and the Space Economy. Oh, and email me your address. I'm going to send you this book, Race in Space, Racial Equity and Justice in the Space Economy. All right.
Thank you, brother. Thank you a lot, brother.